Hey everybody, Ryan Ewell here with the Africa Digital Media Academy, and today we are going to be looking really quickly at object shapes for masks. So the way I'm going to just show you how this works is let's just quickly draw, let's get a rectangle here, and let's put the rectangle on like this. So we got a rectangle, and then maybe let's duplicate that. And this rectangle, let's go into library here, and let's put on a gradient. How about Arctic blue? Great. And then for this one, let's go and put in candy corn. There you go. So now we have these two shapes here, these rectangles, and one of them is a gradient like this, and one of them is gradient like this. And now, let's say for instance on this rectangle, we wanted to have some kind of shape to be, instead of just this rectangle, we wanted a shape to be cut into this gradient. So let's go, for instance, into shapes here, and let's find, why not, a star, and let's just go in and let's just bring a star into here. So here's our star. Now, I'm going to create this gradient right here. It's going to be in the shape of a star. And the way I do that is this. So I'm going to select my gradient. So here I have selected it. I'm going to go up to Object, and I'm going to go into here and go Add Image Mask. And when I do that, you'll see right here is this drop well. And this drop well is ready for something to be added. So I'm going to grab this star and just drag it right into this drop well. And when I do that, you'll see now the star is no longer visible. It's turned off. And the image mask, if we go into Inspector here, you can see the star is the mask. And what's interesting about this, if you watch, if I select the star here and I move it around, you'll notice that it actually changes depending on where I'm moving it because of the gradient. And if you remember, if I turn off the image mask here, the gradient looks like this. So when I have the image mask on, when I move the star, it's going to move wherever the gradient is looking at that point. So down here the gradient's dark blue, it's dark blue. Up here it's light, and that's why it's changing. Now I can also select my gradient and move my gradient around, and that will also then change this as well. So this is how I can make an object mask. Now, of course, I could do the same thing now, let's say with this candy corn. I can go into my library, and I can even do something instead of that. What if I just take some text tool here and I type something like ADMA, like this, and now I'm going to bring up my HUD and just make this a really large size so we can see it like this. And I can even make something like text be a mask. So for instance, on the rectangle again, let's say I want this gradient right here to have the shape of ADMA. I just go up, select my object that I want to have the mask applied to, go up to Object, go Add Image Mask. Now we have the drop well. Grab ADMA and drag it into the drop well, and now you can see we have that. And as you can see, it disabled ADMA. So again, it disabled it by automatically. And now it has an image mask. And now if I select ADMA and move it around, same thing. It is going to use the gradient wherever I move it. So now I have these two objects right here. And of course, now we can go in and we can do things like play around with blend modes. So for instance, selecting my gradient here, because remember, I want to select the gradient. That is, this is what's actually visible. If I turn it off, you can see that's what's actually visible, yeah? So this is not the image mask. The image mask is the whole thing. This is what's actually visible. So I select this, I go into Inspector, and maybe I want to change, the properties from blend mode from normal to maybe subtract. And now you can see it changes the way these interact. So same thing with the rectangle here. I can go in, maybe I want to decrease the opacity a little bit. And so you can really start to play around with blend modes and and things like that. If I can go into overlay or screen, and I can really just darken. It depends what's underneath. So I would need another layer underneath. So if I wanted, for instance, to go in, make the rectangle tool like this, and then move this down in my layers by going Command left bracket, move this down. Maybe go into library And let's add another gradient to this object right here. Maybe like, why not industrial sky? Why not apply that? And now, of course, when I change my, my blend modes on here under inspector and under properties, maybe I can start changing this. If it's normal, then of course it's going to show up. Now maybe I change the opacity, and I can go change the blend mode again to maybe like add, or why not overlay. And you can see, so changing the blend modes of these different objects really affects how things underneath are changed, and the masks, are allowing us to really play around with, where, if I select this again, if I select my star, you can see, of course, it's really changes depending on where I put it. So this is just a real quick look at how you can use objects as masks for anything from gradients to pieces of video. I just use gradients in this example, but you can add that image mask to anything you want. And that is a quick look at objects, shapes, and masks in motion.